There is a kind of person in this world who walks softly but feels deeply. A person who does not need to dominate every conversation to understand the room. A person who can sit in silence and still hear the pain behind someone's smile. These people are often misunderstood because society celebrates loudness, constant opinions, and endless noise. But there is power in the empath who does not talk too much. Some of the strongest souls are not the ones who speak the most. They are the ones who listen with intention. They are the ones who notice what others ignore. While the world rushes to be heard, the empath studies human nature in silence. They observe tone, energy, facial expressions, and emotional shifts. They can feel tension before words are spoken. They can sense sadness hidden behind forced laughter. And because of this sensitivity, they become careful with their own words. An empath who speaks less is not empty inside. In fact, they are often overflowing with thought, wisdom, and emotion. They have learned that not every battle deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves energy. Not every conversation deserves access to their spirit. Their silence is not insecurity. Their silence is discernment. There comes a point in life when a deep soul realizes that talking too much drains spiritual strength. Every unnecessary argument steals peace. Every attempt to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you becomes emotional exhaustion. So the empath evolves. They stop trying to convince everyone. They stop forcing connections. They stop speaking just to fill silence. And this is where their transformation begins. Because silence sharpens awareness. When you stop constantly speaking, you start truly seeing. You notice manipulation faster. You recognize fake intentions sooner. You become more connected to intuition. The quiet empath develops an inner sensitivity that protects them from chaos. They begin to understand that wisdom is not proven by how much you say, but by how deeply you understand. Many empaths became quiet because life taught them painful lessons. They were once the person who gave too much, explained too much, trusted too much, and carried everyone else's burdens. They learned what it feels like to be unheard while always listening to others. They learned the pain of pouring love into people who only took from them emotionally. And after enough disappointment, they discovered the sacred value of silence. Silence became healing. Silence became protection. Silence became power. Some people fear quiet individuals because silence makes truth uncomfortable. Loud people can hide behind endless words, but quiet people observe patterns. They remember contradictions. They feel energy shifts. A silent empath can walk into a room and immediately sense who is carrying jealousy, pain, anger, insecurity, or peace. This is why their presence often unsettles people. Not because they are intimidating, but because they see beyond masks. The empath who does not talk too much understands something powerful. Energy speaks louder than words. A calm spirit can influence an entire room without raising its voice. A peaceful heart can disarm chaos without fighting. A grounded soul can bring comfort without giving long speeches. And there is something deeply spiritual about this, because wisdom often grows in stillness. The loud world teaches people to react immediately. But the empath learns the strength of pause. Before speaking, they reflect. Before judging, they understand. Before reacting emotionally, they listen to their inner discernment. This restraint is not weakness. It is maturity. Anyone can shout. Anyone can interrupt. Anyone can speak without thinking. But it takes discipline to remain calm when emotions rise. It takes inner strength to walk away from meaningless conflict. It takes wisdom to know that peace is more valuable than proving a point. The quiet empath also understands the importance of protecting emotional energy. They know that every environment affects the soul. Every conversation carries energy. Every relationship either drains or nourishes the spirit. So they become selective with friendships, selective with conversations, selective with access. Not because they think they are better than others, but because they finally understand their worth. And this is a lesson many people never learn. You do not have to attend every argument you are invited to. You do not have to explain your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. You do not have to constantly prove your goodness. Sometimes your peace is the loudest statement you can make. There are people who mistake quietness for weakness until life forces them to realize that calm people often carry the deepest strength. The empath who remains composed under pressure has already fought internal battles most people know nothing about. Their gentleness was not created by an easy life. It was created by surviving pain without becoming cruel. That is true strength, to remain kind in a harsh world, to remain soft without becoming fragile, to remain peaceful without surrendering your boundaries. The psychology of quiet empaths reveals something beautiful about human nature. The deepest people are not always the most visible. Some souls were never meant to compete for attention. They were meant to bring healing, wisdom, and emotional depth into a noisy world starving for authenticity. And if you are one of those people who does not talk too much, do not feel pressured to become louder just because the world celebrates noise. Your silence is not emptiness. Your silence carries observation, emotional intelligence, wisdom, restraint, and spiritual awareness. You do not need to speak constantly to be powerful. Mountains do not shout, yet they stand strong. The ocean does not argue, yet it moves with unstoppable force. And the deepest souls often speak the least, because they understand something most people never will. Real power does not need constant attention. It simply exists. So continue protecting your peace. Continue listening to your intuition. Continue choosing depth over noise. Continue walking with wisdom instead of reaction. Because in a world addicted to speaking, there is something extraordinary about a soul that has mastered the power of silence. Some people think quiet individuals are disconnected from the world around them, but empaths who do not talk too much are often the most aware people in the room. While others focus on being heard, the empath focuses on understanding. Their silence is not emptiness. It is attention. It is awareness. It is emotional intelligence operating at a deeper level than most people realize. A quiet empath notices the little things others miss. They observe the hesitation in someone's voice, the sadness hidden behind a smile, the tension in body language, and the emotional energy that fills a room. Before a single word is spoken. They can sense when someone is pretending to be okay. They recognize when a person's words do not match their spirit. This is because empaths are naturally tuned into emotional frequencies that many people ignore. Their silence creates space for observation, and observation gives birth to understanding. People who talk constantly are often too busy expressing themselves to truly listen. But the empath studies people carefully. They pay attention to patterns instead of promises. They learn more from watching behavior than hearing explanations. Over time, this ability makes them incredibly discerning. They become skilled at recognizing sincerity, manipulation, insecurity, kindness, and emotional pain without needing everything verbally explained. This is why quiet empaths often feel emotionally exhausted in loud environments. Their minds are constantly processing energy, emotions, and unspoken tension. A crowded room is not just noise to them. It is emotional information flowing from every direction. They can feel stress, anger, jealousy, anxiety, and sadness without anyone directly saying a word. Because of this, they choose silence not only for peace but also for clarity. Silence sharpens their intuition. The less they speak unnecessarily, the more connected they become to their inner awareness. They begin trusting feelings that cannot always be logically explained. They sense danger before it fully appears. They recognize unhealthy people early. They notice emotional shifts long before others catch on. Their quiet nature becomes a form of protection. Many people underestimate silent empaths because they mistake observation for passivity. But observation is powerful. A person who listens deeply learns more than a person who constantly reacts. Quiet empaths understand that words can deceive, but consistent behavior reveals truth. This is why they rarely rush into judgment, relationships, or emotional attachment. They study before. Do they trust? And while others seek attention through endless talking, the empath quietly gathers wisdom through awareness. Their silence allows them to see life with greater depth, greater sensitivity, and greater understanding than most people ever develop. Many people misunderstand quiet empaths because society often associates silence with weakness, insecurity, or fear. But the truth is far deeper than that. An empath who does not talk too much is usually carrying an emotional depth that words cannot fully explain. Their quietness is not a lack of confidence. It is the result of feeling life intensely. Empaths experience emotions on a level most people cannot see. They absorb the atmosphere around them, feel the emotional weight of conversations, and carry the energy of environments long after others have forgotten about them. Because of this, they become careful with their words. They understand that words carry power. They know that speaking without purpose can create misunderstandings, ending conflict or emotional exhaustion. So instead of talking endlessly, they choose reflection. A quiet empath often spends more time thinking than speaking. Their mind is constantly processing emotions, memories, human behavior, and spiritual lessons. While others react immediately, the empath pauses to understand what they truly feel. This emotional depth creates wisdom, but it also creates sensitivity. They know how painful careless words can be because they themselves feel things deeply. That is why they often speak gently and intentionally. Their silence also comes from emotional maturity. Many empaths have lived through experiences that force them to grow inwardly. They have been misunderstood, emotionally drained, betrayed, or taken for granted because of their kindness. Over time, they learn that not every situation deserves a reaction. They stop wasting energy trying to explain themselves to people who refuse to understand them. Instead, they become more selective with where they invest their voice. There is strength in this kind of restraint. Weak people react to everything. Deep people learn when silence is wiser than speaking. The quiet empath understands that inner peace is more valuable than winning arguments or seeking validation. They no longer feel the need to prove their intelligence, goodness, or emotional depth to everyone around them. They become comfortable with being misunderstood by people who only judge appearances. Another reason empaths become quieter is because they often carry emotions that are difficult to express. Sometimes they feel too much at once. Sometimes they understand pain so deeply that ordinary conversations feel shallow. They crave authenticity, meaningful connection, and emotional truth. Small talk rarely satisfies them because their soul naturally searches for depth. And despite their quiet nature, empaths are not emotionally weak people hiding from the world. In many cases, they are among the strongest individuals, as you will ever meet. It takes enormous strength to remain kind after pain, calm after chaos, and gentle in a world that rewards hardness. Their quietness is not fragility. It is emotional discipline shaped by deep understanding, deep feeling, and deep spiritual awareness. Empaths who do not talk too much often understand something that many people learn far too late in life. Energy is precious. Every conversation, every environment, and every relationship has the power to either nourish the spirit or drain it completely. Because empaths naturally absorb emotions from others, they become deeply aware of how exhausting unnecessary interaction can be. Their silence is not distance for the sake of pride. It is protection for the sake of peace. Many empaths spent years giving endless attention, emotional support, and understanding to people who never truly valued them. They became the listener for everyone else while quietly carrying their own emotional burdens alone. Over time, this community scant emotional output left them exhausted. They realized that not everyone deserves unlimited access to their mind, heart, and energy. This realization changes them deeply. That is when the empath begins speaking less. Not because they no longer care about people, but because they finally understand the importance of boundaries. They stop engaging in gossip, pointless drama, and emotionally draining conversations. They become selective about who they spend time with because they know that certain people leave them emotionally heavy, anxious, or spiritually tired. They can feel when someone's energy is dishonest, manipulative, jealous, or chaotic. An empath's nervous system is highly sensitive to emotional environments. Loud arguments, negativity, fake behavior, and constant emotional demands can overwhelm them internally, even if they appear calm on the outside. This is why many quiet empaths need solitude. Silence becomes a way to recover emotionally and spiritually. Time alone, hell. P.S. Them reconnect with themselves after absorbing too much from the world around them. People who do not understand empaths may think they are antisocial or distant, but the truth is often the opposite. Empaths care deeply. Sometimes too deeply. That is exactly why they must protect their energy carefully. If they do not, they risk becoming emotionally burned out from constantly carrying the emotions of others. Protecting energy also means protecting peace. Quiet empaths learn that they do not have to respond to every opinion, argument, or provocation. They no longer waste emotional strength trying to fix everyone. They stop over-explaining themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, they choose calmness over chaos and distance over emotional confusion. This creates a different kind of strength within them. The empath begins valuing emotional clarity more than social approval. They would rather have a few genuine connections than many exhausting relationships. Hey, understand that being constantly available to everyone often leads to losing connection with yourself, and so their silence becomes intentional. It becomes a sacred boundary. Not a wall built from hate, but wisdom built from experience. Because the empath eventually learns that protecting your energy is not selfish. It is necessary if you want to remain emotionally healthy, spiritually grounded, and mentally at peace in a world full of emotional noise. Silence gives the empath something that loud environments often steal from people: clarity. While others rush to speak, react, interrupt, or defend themselves, the quiet empath watches carefully. They listen beyond words. They study behavior, tone, patterns, and emotional shifts. Because they are not constantly focused on expressing themselves, they become highly skilled at recognizing truth beneath the surface. An empath who does not talk too much understands that people often reveal more through energy than language. Someone may they are happy while carrying heaviness in their spirit. Another person may speak kindly while secretly holding jealousy, manipulation, or resentment inside. The empath senses these contradictions quickly because silence sharpens emotional perception. This is one reason quiet empaths are difficult to deceive for long periods of time. They may not immediately confront what they feel, but internally they notice everything. They remember inconsistencies. They notice when someone's behavior changes. They can sense emotional distance before it becomes visible to others. They recognize fake kindness, forced laughter, and hidden hostility because their awareness extends beyond spoken communication. Many empaths develop this sensitivity through painful life experiences. They trusted words too easily in the past and later discovered that actions told a different story. Over time, they learned to stop listening only with their ears and start listening with intuition. This changed the way they interact with people completely. Silence strengthens intuition because it removes distraction. When a person is constantly speaking or reacting emotionally, they often ignore their inner discernment. But the empath who remains calm and observant becomes deeply connected to instinct. They begin sensing danger before it fully appears. They recognize unhealthy situations early. Sometimes they cannot logically explain why something feels wrong, but their spirit immediately detects imbalance. This quiet awareness can make others uncomfortable. People who wear masks often feel exposed around silent empaths because silence creates space for truth to surface. Loud personalities can sometimes hide behind performance and constant talking, but quiet observation sees beyond appearances. The empath notices motives, emotional tension, insecurity, and dishonesty without needing dramatic evidence. At the same time, silence also helps empaths recognize genuine souls. They can feel sincerity, kindness, humility, and emotional warmth in people who speak from the heart. Because they are sensitive to energy, they are often drawn toward authenticity and naturally distance themselves from manipulation or emotional chaos. This ability to discern truth becomes a form of protection. Quiet empaths learn not to trust people simply because they sound convincing. They trust consistency, character, and emotional alignment. They understand that words can be practiced, but energy rarely lies. And in a world filled with noise, distractions, and superficial communication, the empath's silence becomes a powerful advantage. While others search for truth through endless explanations, the quiet empath discovers truth by observing what people reveal when they think no one is paying attention. Quiet empaths often carry a level of wisdom that surprises people. Because they do not constantly speak, many assume they have little to say. But in reality, their silence is usually filled with reflection, observation, and deep inner processing. They spend more time thinking than reacting, more time understanding than judging, and more time learning from life than trying to impress others. This is where their wisdom begins to grow. Most people move through life distracted by noise. They react emotionally, speak impulsively, and rarely pause long enough to truly examine themselves or the world around them. But the empath who talks less develops a habit of reflection. They replay conversations in their mind, analyze human behavior, study emotional patterns, and search for meaning in experiences that others quickly forget. Over time, this creates emotional intelligence and spiritual maturity. Empaths are naturally introspective people. They do not only observe others, they also examine themselves deeply. They question their choices, their emotions, their purpose, and the lessons hidden inside painful experiences. This self-awareness becomes a powerful teacher. Instead of allowing suffering to make them bitter, many empaths quietly transform pain into understanding. That is why their advice often carries depth. When a quiet empath finally speaks, their words usually come from experience, not ego. They understand heartbreak because they have survived it. They understand loneliness because they have felt emotionally misunderstood. They understand healing because they have spent countless nights rebuilding themselves in silence. Their wisdom is earned through emotional survival. There is also strength in the way they respond to conflict. A reflective empath does not immediately explode with anger or rush into emotional reactions. They pause. They think carefully before speaking because they understand that words can either heal or destroy. This restraint creates calmness and calmness creates clearer judgment. Many quiet empaths become the peaceful voice in chaotic situations because they have trained themselves to think beyond temporary emotions. Their wisdom also comes from observing human nature over time. Since they spend more time listening than speaking, they learn how people behave under pressure, disappointment, success, insecurity, and pain. They notice patterns in relationships and understand emotional dynamics others overlook. This gives them a unique perspective on life and people. Some of the wisest souls are not the loudest teachers. They are the quiet individuals who carry understanding within them without constantly needing recognition. The empath who reflects deeply learns lessons that cannot be taught in ordinary conversations. Life itself becomes their teacher. And because they spend so much time in thought and self-examination, they often develop a deep connection to purpose, spirituality, and inner truth. They begin to value peace over pride, authenticity over attention, and wisdom over validation. Their silence is not emptiness. It is a mind full of lessons, a heart full of understanding, and a soul shaped by reflection. There is something powerful about a quiet empath that cannot always be explained with words. They may not command attention through loud speeches or dramatic behavior, yet their presence alone can deeply affect the people around them. Some individuals change a room by being loud, but the empath changes a room by bringing calmness, understanding, and emotional safety. Their energy speaks before they ever do. People often feel strangely comfortable around quiet empaths because they sense sincerity in them. In a world where many conversations feel rushed, superficial, or self-centered, the empath offers genuine attention. When they listen, they truly listen. When they care deeply. This creates trust naturally. Others feel emotionally seen in their presence, sometimes without even understanding why. A quiet empath also has the ability to calm emotional chaos. Their peaceful nature can soften tension during conflict because they do not immediately react with aggression or ego. They could. Emotional steadiness that helps others feel grounded. Even in difficult situations, they often remain thoughtful rather than impulsive. This calm energy becomes healing for people who are overwhelmed by stress, anxiety, or emotional pain. Many empaths underestimate how deeply they influence others because their impact is subtle rather than loud. But often, the kindest words someone remembers came from a quiet person. The most meaningful support sometimes comes from someone who simply stayed present during hard times. The empath understands that transformation does not always require grand actions. Sometimes healing begins through compassion, patience, and silent understanding. Their presence also encourages authenticity in others. Because empaths are emotionally intuitive, people often feel safe lowering their emotional masks around them. Someone who hides pain from the rest of the world may unexpectedly open up to a quiet empath because they sense acceptance instead of judgment. This emotional safety is rare, and it has the power to change lives. At the same time, quiet empaths inspire people through example. They show that strength does not require arrogance. They prove that gentleness is not weakness. They demonstrate that peace can exist in a harsh world. Without constantly seeking attention, they quietly remind others that emotional depth, humility, and kindness still matter. There is also something spiritually powerful about a calm presence. In a noisy world full of competition, negativity, and emotional confusion, the empath carries a different energy. Their stillness creates comfort. Their patience creates trust. Their compassion creates healing. Even without many words, they leave lasting impressions on the hearts of people they encounter. And often, the empath never fully realizes how many lives they touch. A single conversation, a moment of understanding, or even silent support during someone's darkest season can remain in another person's memory. Why forever? This is the hidden power of the quiet empath. They may not always speak loudly, but their presence alone can bring light, healing, and transformation into the lives of others. In the end, the psychology of empaths who do not talk too much teaches us that true strength is not always loud. Some of the deepest souls move quietly, observe carefully, and love sincerely without needing constant attention from the world. Their silence is filled with wisdom, emotional awareness, and spiritual depth. They remind us that peace is powerful, discernment is necessary, and kindness is not weakness. In a world full of noise, the quiet empath becomes a rare light, calm, thoughtful, and transformative. So if you are someone who speaks less but feels deeply, never believe that your quietness makes you less valuable. Your presence carries meaning, your heart carries wisdom, and your silence carries power. Thank you all for listening and sharing this moment of reflection together. May you continue. In you protecting your peace, trusting your intuition, and embracing the unique depth within your soul. Stay strong, stay grounded, and never underestimate the power of a quiet heart.